Good evening, everyone. We're on to, I believe, the 46th episode of Cultist Simulator, the Priest DLC, playing as Harold Davidson. So I was kind of going on a bit of a flyer as far as trying to get the Winter Lock Scar. We're sort of in the final moments of being able to try and do that. I've got 70 seconds left on the Affliction, and in very practical terms, I actually need to... I mean, if I want to save the money, there was a reason why I wanted to get the Vitality. I actually have 5 seconds less than I thought I had before. But the big determining factor here is going to be whether or not Sunset Passages gives us the lore we wanted. I'm feeling like it probably won't, but you never know. Otherwise, we've got a... Right, we're resummoning a Precussigant. We're trying to extend the life of the Raw Prophet so that we can keep it around for a little bit longer. And we have a Season of Ambitions coming up, which will generate some restlessness. Normally I would want to paint that away, but because I'm going to be doing summonings and such, I may just need to accept that the restlessness will either turn into dread, or I'm going to have to come up with other uses for it. I've also got a couple of fervor on the table which do need to be dealt with as well. Again, those can potentially turn into dread, but the drawback there is if I let all of it decay into dread, then we're in a situation where I'm one season of despair away from a game over. So it's a little bit of a tricky situation, but it's partly due to the fact that I've got a couple of things, if I can, that I would like to achieve. You know, I think it's sometimes worth taking a little bit of a risk to be able to get those goals. So with all of that in mind, we're actually just going to let time run by so that we can see the outcomes of a couple of things. And based on what those outcomes are, we can consider the next steps. Okay, so we've got the Eye of, I'm so bad at pronunciation, Ikirmawi. And we've got at least one more location. The Rending Mountains, it has been said, tear the flesh of history. It is generally only said by people like Christopher Alopoli, but still, they are a good region to find the places that daylight history does not recognize. So 1 minute here. Again, ideally we'll have the summons ready to go more or less instantaneously. Our devotion has drawn comment, so that's an extra mystique. Again, I'm not too worried about this. Most of the time, we just convert evidence into not evidence with the Raw Prophet. But in this case here, there's far more mystique than what the weary detective knows what to do with. So 4 seconds before we can see if there's any excitement going on. The Watchman, who is the door in the eye, waits in my dreams. If I learn the lantern lore, I can dream of this temptation, and I can advance my purpose. The need gnaws at me. The White Ceremony was spoken to honor the Madrigard at funerals held in the chilly space before dawn. The text cautions that all blades should remain sheathed while the ceremony is spoken, lest the corpse be not quiet. And I think I've mentioned this in previous videos before, but I actually really like this detail because, of course, this is implying that a connection between Winter and Edge, where you can actually kind of see it reflected. So one theme that I kind of like, I don't even, actually maybe theme's not the right word, but one of the things that I do quite like about Cultist Simulator is the fact that things that you would maybe associate with the mundane world do still become elements inside of rituals. And there's a few different dimensions that I sort of like that across. So one is the idea, again, I know I talk about this one a lot, but the idea of dread becoming an input into a ritual. Or in general, just the idea of having things that maybe at the start of the game you associate as purely negative events suddenly become things that are very helpful to you. It's maybe worth remembering that I definitely come from a time of playing this game when fascination was considerably more difficult to deal with than it is right now. So originally the only way you could get rid of fascination was dread. And as a consequence, most of my losses, I think, were to fascination. And so in this particular case here, that is a really good way for learning the line inside the game. Even dread has its uses. Although I think as a whole, probably it's not a bad idea to have another way of sort of tranquilizing the fascination, because I think if you have one particular type of, of ending that people run into, and one that isn't sort of like a victory style ending, although I do like to try and pull back a little bit. I always just think, if you think the ending is an interesting ending to your story, then you had a good time. But I also know most people tend not to think that, starving to death is the most interesting solution. But yeah, I mean, obviously, I think I was not the only one to have a bit of difficulty with fascination, and so I think as a whole, the fleeting reminiscence change makes a lot of sense. But it does potentially give up a little bit of that feeling that something that you've normally associated as a very negative consequence or a very negative side effect of certain actions, to have that turned and just maybe have the context or sort of the way you think about it to change, to turn it from something negative into something that you can actually use to achieve your ambitions. I like that idea because I know in my own case, I've definitely channeled frustrations into certain types of work or certain types of projects that I've done that maybe isn't always the healthiest attitude towards these things, but it's definitely better than just sort of stewing on it, I suppose. And so, to a certain extent, I think this is present inside of Priest. I mean, I think in the case of Priest, you sort of understand that there are definitely a number of things that you can use as ingredients. So in this case here, you wouldn't willingly want to hang on to an affliction, but in this particular case, I've chosen to do so because there was an opportunity for me to use it to achieve a victory. But in general, I just really like this idea that even things like passion, right? So if you have that sudden flash of inspiration, well, that's the touch of moth that you're feeling. Or, if you have the aha moment while you're studying, maybe you've been working on a math text and you've been trying to make sense of this proof and you're reading it for the 5th time and all of a sudden it all just locks into place. Well, there you've felt a little bit of lantern. And even things, when it's talking about laces uncoiling, in the presence of Nock, you get to see these. And usually those kinds of references you'll see in explicitly, occult cards. So things like influences, things like lore. But what I like are the things that we wouldn't normally associate with the Mansis. Things like health, passion, reason, glimmering, erudition. The sorts of things that we would, we maybe wouldn't look twice at, and again, there's not a number of ways you can do it. You could even just say, if you are a more poetic spirit, for instance, right? One example I like taking of this would be, if I generally have lived in cities for most of my life. So, you can walk by and you can see sort of a tree as part of the roadway or whatever. You don't really think twice of it. And then, one day you sort of look and you pass by that tree and you actually see this thing that has sort of been uprooted from its normal environment. It's actually feeling very isolated and alone in this, in this kind of glass and metal labyrinth. And that maybe brings up certain feelings that you may have. It's not like the tree changed, but obviously the way that you look at that, and particularly maybe the way that it affects you, or the way that you would, maybe that's something that leads you down a more interesting train of thought. These are the things that I generally think are what's happening inside of the Cultist Simulator game. I mean, and obviously there are the really overt displays, right? You're summoning the alien gods, you're enacting these great rituals and such, but it is just a very fun little way of looking at the world, to just sort of see these normal things. And every once in a while, these little comments like, you need to be careful about the blades being sheathed during rituals, because there are certain elements that come together. It's also this suggestion that, there are a set of rules that are applying inside of this world. And if you are careless about it, there will be unintended effects. And there's definitely unintended effects inside of Cultist Simulator. But the idea just simply that you need to be careful and you need to understand all of these different aspects and how they interact. And that there can actually be situations where if you are not as careful, or you have your winter follower present when they shouldn't be, you may in fact wind up with a very different result. And actually, that's happened in this playthrough as well. But I don't want to belabor the point too much. I know we only have so much time together. So we didn't get the winter influence or lore that we wanted. So we're going to heal up first. I do need to do something with my fervor, but let's see what happens with summoning a creature from the Thunderskin first. Oh, and I should also decide what I'm going to do with my study verb. In this case, I think we're just going to stay the course. We'll read the works that we were originally going to be. We were in the order we were originally going to do. So, on Matthias and the Amethyst Imago, Pursuit, an account of an occult romance. A certain mech claims to have written this in a single night as part of his initiation into the Theban branch of the House of Leith, that order of immortals who use the arts of water to conceal themselves. Matthias defied us to hunt the names of the moth in the wood to populate his pinned collection. The Amethyst Imago had dallied with the witch and sister, but she'd returned to the wood to plead the moth's pardon. The moth, as a whim or a penance, sent her out to lure the long to a slough of nightmares. Now, I need to decide what I want to do with the summoning. I think we'll maybe wait and see what the outcome in the ritual is. First the thump, the rattle and cry of the ceremonies it attends in the wood. Now here it is, shouldering its way through the world's skin, like a clawed, ruthless uncle, or a headless, flapping bear. Actually, in this case, sometimes it divides, sometimes it unites, sometimes she speaks words of warning, sometimes he advises on appetite. Its prophecies are confusion, their whispers confound. So it is a thresher of thoughts. If I speak to this one, I could offer it my reason. Wild lessons. If I give myself to the frenzy, I will learn a wild lesson. The prophet will enact its prophecies upon my skin, and beneath its pronouncements, my thoughts will part like old cloth. It's got a subtle rupture for that. We've got decrepitude and the consent of wounds. So this is the second time we've done something like this, and perhaps some of you may have some ideas about why this is sort of turning out the way that it does. Now, under normal circumstances, I would actually want to be summoning the Raw Prophet right now, but it's occurring to me that I am really losing my opportunities as far as the the fervor is concerned. So I'm going to do something very, very risky right now. In fact, it's so risky, I may actually want to... Nah. If it turns against me, then that's just a fun little challenge for me to handle. So, let's take the Appointment at Acquire Parish, the Formula Fissive, Oh, no, we don't do the Restlessness yet. The Fervor. And I don't remember, I think it's a reasoned... Okay, prepare a sermon on a secret doctrine to... No, sorry, what am I doing? Health. To be a threshold, my people stand before me, voices raised in song, faces upraised, aflame. There are doors that few ever see, fewer yet ever open. If I am willing to suffer the consequences, I might someday become one of those doors for my congregation to pass. Knock, and ye shall be opened. Okay, and actually, as an aside, let's have a chat with the Raw Prophet about my reason again. So if we wind up with a season of sickness here, this could go poorly for us. Okay, season of suspicion. This place merits closer investigation. So, I've got other things that I can do with the explore verb now. I think right now I'm just going to take the percussagant to search the city. My people stand before me, voices raised in song, faces upraised, aflame. There are doors that few ever see, fewer yet ever open. If I'm willing to suffer the consequences, I might... Sorry, I think I just read this already, but... I thought there was another line before it. Might someday become one of those doors for my congregation to pass. Knock, and ye shall be opened. Hope you all like hearing that again. Okay, so we've healed up. I am going to hire the shifty woman just because it's a chance for me to have something for the... something for me to have for the spider's door when the time comes. Now the question would be, is there something I want to do with the dream slot right now? Or do I want to keep that available? Season of Suspicion. I think we can afford a trip through the stag door. The stag door is the adept's gate. To pass it is to be initiated into the first true mystery of the House of the Sun. The headgear bee weeps to see me enter where it cannot, but it must let me pass. The scarred valves of the door grind open. Oh, what am I doing? It's this one. Matthias loved the Imago. Did he? Can long love? Or has that organ of their soul desiccated beyond repair? The Imago loved Matthias. Did she? Or did she only enact a whim? He pursued her through the wood, but at the last she turned aside from the nightmare slough when they lay together where the bounds grow bright. So they learnt the Grail's pleasures, and this is the lore they won. So, delightful sacrament, or another delightful sacrament for us. And I will move on with our studying. So, some dread actually wouldn't necessarily be that bad for me to pick up, but I am going to continue on the normal path. So, the Silver Book, Emanuel of the Order Lemaya, an order of quasi-immortals who maintained a secret enclave at the source of the river Lemaya in the Roman province of Hispania Gallicaea. It also occurred to me I still need to heal Saliba. Yeah, I'm really running some risks here. Lock the study door, the work begins. Work of the Threshold. The deacon reads now from the Book of St. Respicius. Bronze shapes, but the heart labors. Hunger shows the red cup, and sickness the snow. The lantern knows, while moth understands, and the sword, when it comes, is its own answer. The Vision of Flint. In the vision, I walk in the cold tunnels beneath the House of the Sun, in the light of the lamps of the nephrite and black... the lamps of nephrite and black jade. Angles of flint protrude from the walls, glowing with the heat of their end. I trail my hand over each. They are no longer sharp, and so many people will come with their candles. The prophet will enact its prophecies upon my skin, and beneath its pronouncements, my thoughts will part like old cloth. So another subtle rupture, another decrepitude, and another consent of wounds. So the next question is, what do I want to do with my talk verb right now? I think I still need to keep the raw prophet around, so we will have a chat with them, and the restlessness and the fervor are going to turn into decrepitude. There's really nothing I can do about that. Well, I can save one of them. Sorry, I need a minute to think. I think I'm actually... Yeah, I'll try hanging on to the restlessness. Okay, Season of Vision, so I want to mind my manners as far as any fascination coming up. That's going to have some implications as far as the decrepitude is concerned, but the time might work in my favor here. I'm going to send the percussivant out to search again. Again, I can go to Oriflamme's, but I don't really need the money right now, and it's a nice little way for me to preserve the percussivant. My congregation has donated generously, and they haven't limited those donations to the collection plate. There might be a clever way for me to sort of jump between the fervor and the restlessness. Let's see if that works out. I feel like the trembling heat might actually be really helpful here. But yeah, you know what? Let's hang on to that for a second. Gearby was weeping again. I scooped up his molten tears in my cupped palm. In the dream, my skin peeled and blistered, but only in the dream. And I think we will just go back through the stag door again. I have prepared the text for study. Emanuel of the Ordo Lemaya, an order of quasi-immortals who maintained a secret enclave at the source of the river Lemaya in the Roman province of Hispania Gallicaea. This manual was compiled by one Burzgash, who explains that he came to join the Ordo from the city of messenger eagles after he abandoned the service of the ivory dove. So, members of the Ordo took an oath, the silver chain that forbade men to lie with women or women with men, for what may come is not always a crime of the sky, yet that is a furious danger. It was apparently permissible for men to lie with men and women with women. In fact, Burzgash suggests that should be encouraged to distract from other temptations. Okay, not quite ready for exploring Street Strange by moonlight, so we'll hang on to what we've got here. Another hireling. Well, let's bring him in. I'm definitely going to need to be pretty dexterous with some of these events. All right. My congregation have waited all night in vigil. I am awake. My wound is almost healed. The scar will remain. Health has been permanently converted to a scar. There are always 7 marks. You will need 7 lock scars. There is always a way, though the way may be narrow. Forge lock scar. When I am a threshold, this scar will open to the touch of hot iron. And funds. Okay, so let's think a little bit about how I'm going to handle the next few seconds. I can use the restlessness in a painting. I can use the fervor in... Okay, I'm going to start by using the fervor in a sermon. I'll do the formula vigilant here. The congregation is already in a state of excitement. Any secret knowledge will almost certainly drive them to exaltation. Okay, so that's there's gonna be some implications here as far as talk is concerned, but I think I'm gonna be able to work with this. Okay, so we talk with the raw prophet again. Might have some trouble with the shifty woman, but we'll see if we can make that work for us too. And Season of Despair coming up, so as it turns out, this fancy footwork as far as the dread is concerned is actually helping us out. Oh, what was I thinking? Okay, well, there's a easy fix for that. Ooh. 32.8, so if I turn this into dread... Ooh. Yeah, it's better for me not to have that turn into dread. Sorry, I thought it was the other way around. Actually, hang on. I think it had always been... If there was a secret histories there, it usually turns up the secret histories. Huh. Anyways, I dreamt of the mantis behind the white door of the space above the orchard, the space that overlooks the bounds, the space where the vagabond once painted her river. Painted ships passed upon the painted river. I met the painted eyes of a painted captain. She saluted, and the motion was like the layered movement of clouds. The sail of the ship was amber, and the captain's eyes the green of new barley, and the river aquamarine. Now that I'm awake, I see those colors still. So I'm trying to think if I want to do anything with the dream slot right now, or if holding back is the right call. we can go back. I don't think there's anything really pressing that I need the dream slot for at the moment. Stag Door is the Adept's Gate. Its passage is to be initiated into the first true mystery of the House of the Sun. The head Gearby weeps to see me enter where it cannot, but it must let me pass. The scarred valves of the door grind open. Okay, Silver Book. The manual prescribes potential countermeasures to protect those who might be tempted to go against the oath. Masks, disfigurement, severe poetic disciplines. Those who do break it are to be punished with death, although there are lesser punishments prescribed for various acts that don't involve actual coitus. An invocation is included, which was used to incorporate these punishments into summoning rites. Menascate Invocation. When the moon's face was wounded, these words appeared. So this is helpful because if we need a level 10 knock, we pretty much have it just by moving it up. Well, let's think about what we want to do with the study verb. I think we'll just carry on with our usual research. So in this case, the known unknown tantra. Carlos Sari, the ecstatic mystic of the Pyrenees, was known to recite this in 3 languages, though he had never visited the subcontinent. So I am potentially opening myself up to a bit of a frustration with fascination, but I am going to risk this. At last their fervor is spent. What have they made of this night? Fervor and lore together will almost always cause exaltation, but will use up the fervor. Okay, Professor Gunt has now hired a fortune teller. So, a few tasks for me to perform. We've got 34 seconds left on the raw profit. So what I'm going to do here, it's going to be a passion painting. So the potential threat here is that I get another fascination. I'm going to use the restlessness as inspiration. This should have an impact. I'm doing all passion just because I want to get rid of that last staleness. Now, I believe if I do... Yeah, I don't want to explore with it. I want to imprison the followers. Or the help. So we'll send the percussivant out. Nothing. My words cease like sand in a glass. All right. So here we should take church. Train and imprison a follower. This one must serve another purpose now. Into the cupboard they go. So this only takes 10 seconds, so I still have time left for the raw profit. Barely, but we have it. I could spend money on better paints, or perhaps I could find more exotic pigments. We're doing okay for cash, and I don't have that much staleness, so I'll take a bit of a gamble on this one. Another season of suspicion coming up. I've locked this one away safely. When their screaming and raving subsides, I will subdue them properly. So again, I'm not worrying too much about notoriety and such. We're kind of already down that path. So once again, we'll take the heterodox church, imprison the fortune teller. That's going to leave us very little time with the raw profit, but we still have it. That's the important thing. Oh, another hireling. Gives me something to use the money, I suppose. Our devotion has drawn comment. And I'm certain that my adversary has lodged a copy of their notes elsewhere, with their solicitor, with their superior, or even with a contact in the press. This is troubling. So this is something that I'll send the raw prophet to deal with right away. I'll lock this one away safely. When their screaming and raving subsides, I'll subdue them properly. Wrong topic. There we go. My scheme will most likely succeed. There's always a chance that something will go awry. So we didn't wind up using this influence. Again, there's just a certain number of things I had to do in a fixed period of time. So, you know, I did my best with what I was given. All that I am is here. So as long as we don't generate any dread, we will be fine. I'm actually going to pull the subtle rupture here just because I am going to want to try and do a summoning at some point. In my sleep, I ran my fingers along the ridged edges of the stag door's scars. Our company it was that shattered it, Gearby says suddenly. Before the gods who were flesh, the mansis was forbidden to mortals. We were the first know. He begins again to weep his molten tears. I wish that we had not. I wish that I had died in the world. I've forgotten what else he said, but I remember the shapes of the fissures in the stag door, and for all of today, doors will fear my touch. So I'm really running out of time on the raw prophet, and I've used it for the main thing that I wanted to use it for, but at some point I am going to need to do the summoning, so the subtle rupture is helpful with that. In the meantime, we do have a couple of betrayed followers, so we can use them as inputs to the spider's door. The spider's door is always thirsty, always. The blood I have given leaks in threads and spills through the skin of the world, and the door drinks it, and a moment's satisfaction swells its opening until I can pass. And we've translated the text. So let's let the painting finish, and then we will call it a night. I'll wait a little while on the known unknown tantra. I figure we can read the text for the next video. Magnificent work. I've created something both distinctive and beautiful, and will very likely enhance my reputation. All right, I got a fascination out of that, which is a shame, but we'll make do. 2 fascination is not the end of the world, but it is something that I want to keep a close eye on. Although we don't have the staleness anymore, so I suppose that's a nice side effect. In practical terms, the way I'm going to handle this is, so the fleeting reminiscence will appear in 24 seconds. Season of Suspicion's coming up, so I don't really need to worry about, I suppose I'll have to worry about the evidence, but the evidence should hopefully be destroyed in 35 seconds. So really, at this point, I can try and get something like a restlessness, or I can otherwise try and generate dread, which, of course, after reading the Ivory Book is a possibility. Although I think the Ivory Book is still relatively tame, so I shouldn't be banking on that. But one way or the other, it's not that hard. In practical terms, I'm going to have 1 fascination, and 1 fascination is something that I can manage. Of course, that's going to be happening in the next video. So with that in mind, thank you very much for watching. I do always appreciate that. If you have not yet subscribed, do feel free to subscribe to the channel. It does sort of help me grow. But more importantly, if you're subscribed, you can get notifications for the channel. I believe you have to hit the little notification bell beside it, but if that's something that'll help you know when a new video comes out, you can enable that as well. In addition, if you do want to give me a hand in terms of getting noticed, likes and comments are definitely something that will help it out. And of course, the comments are also just a nice chance to interact with all of you. Although if you watch YouTube the way that I do, usually you tend not to interact with a lot of people. So I totally understand it if you don't. As for me, I will be back to, there should be one more video. I'm recording this on a long weekend, so it's a little tricky to see how the week is going, but there should be one more video tomorrow. Usual videos are Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And so I should hopefully see you tomorrow. Have a good evening, and we'll see you in the next one.